We're back. What's up, everybody? Benja, Welldone, coming at you live on this beautiful corona-free day. It is Sunday, June the 7th. How are you doing? So you know what? Yesterday was June the 6th. That's D-Day. And I made a video yesterday that I decided not to release after all, because halfway through it, I realized that with all this commotion and everything going on between the protests and the corona, I mean, everybody is acting the way they should be acting. But there's just so much different tension in so much different areas. The whole point of my video yesterday was try to bring attention to what June 6th was, which was when people of all color from America invaded a Nazi-filled Germany and fought alongside together. And then in that video, I also mentioned a couple, I'm an Army vet, so I mentioned a couple personal friends of mine that were killed. Both were females in the line of duty, serving overseas as a fellow soldier in the Army. One was black, one was white, and they didn't give their lives as a black female or a white female. They gave their lives as an American that loved America, and they were proud. And it was really interesting because I kind of just reflected on the fact that I wish that, let me fix this little. I kind of reflected on the fact that if they were basically still alive, along with the other people that fought on June the 6th, 1944, during the invasion of Normandy, France, if they were alive today, the ones that were killed and whatnot, what they would think about everything that's going on. And the reason I decided not to release the video is because I realized a bigger point about halfway through, which was that anything that I basically say nowadays, there's a bigger issue of being able to freely express yourself, even in an intelligent way, to have somebody chop up that video and or audio or whatever the case, and maybe misconstrue or restate what you meant, even though that wasn't what was meant. And then I just started thinking about making a separate video about free speech, which is basically what I'm doing now. You know, there's a real serious dichotomy about free speech, because on one aspect, in this country, you, to a certain degree, you should be able to freely speak your own thoughts. But now it's even more interesting because people are held accountable, as they should be, to the words that they say. However, that also, it's like a double-edged sword. You understand what I'm saying? Because in some aspects, people, you're free to say what you want, but part of that liberty in America was being able to say it without repercussion. And that could be anything. It could be about a sports team that you don't like. It could be, you could just, you don't have to be hateful. You can just have a dislike about something. But now it's getting to the point of where, regardless of what you say, or even not saying anything, you could be held accountable. So now certain businesses are being contacted asking what their viewpoint is on basically everything from Corona to the protests or absolutely anything. And it's kind of weird because it's kind of like if they don't say anything, they get ridiculed. If they do say anything, they got to say the exactly right thing to make everybody happy. But if you make people happy on the left, you don't make them happy on the right. And one of the great things about this country is the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment is it's basically the right not to say anything. And it can be exercised just along with your other amendments. This is such an interesting time in America because you have free speech, while part of that speech can actually be restricted, which is another amendment, another given right that you have. And whether you say anything or you don't, you could be held accountable for what you say or what you don't say. So that comes to question, what is the appropriate thing to say or not say? Or do you just avoid it altogether? the president of Canada, the president of Canada, Mr. Justin Trudeau. I'm a comedian, right? And very rarely do I get kind of deep and serious and stuff, as I did yesterday. And I'm slightly getting kind of deep and serious today. But if anything, I might be coming across a little bit more intelligent, not because I'm not already, but just because I'm speaking to something more in depth. Outside of comedy. But the president of Canada was actually caught in something that's called a gotcha question yesterday, and it was pretty interesting. Or actually, this happened a few days ago or something. But Justin Trudeau, who is the president of Canada, was asked in a news conference what he thinks about, what his viewpoint is about the protests that are going on in America, and the rioting and the looting and stuff like that. So already those are three. It's one question with three separate answers, which is the protests, the rioting, and the looting. You can riot and not loot. Like, you could run amok in the streets and stuff like that. It's not illegal. And then you talk about the looting, and then the civil protests. All those were kind of combined in one. And then he had a caveat to that. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, however the reporter said it to the Canadian president, Justin Trudeau. He said, and if you don't have a comment, something along the lines of, and if you don't have a comment or a response as far as how the protests, A, the riots, B, and the looting, C, is considered, doesn't that mean that you're something along the lines of like insensitive or not supportive to the cause of the people? So he kind of like trapped him. He kind of asked him three questions, and if there was even time for him to think on how to best answer that question, by him saying nothing for too long, it appears as him being labeled by the question before him as not supporting the right side of logic, of history, of people's emotions and feelings. So he literally stood there for about 30 seconds, the president of a country, kind of lockjawed, so to speak, as far as what to say, and realizing the longer he didn't say something, he was supporting the question of the reporter, making him look and appear insensitive. So it was such a brilliant thing to do, but it was such an interesting thing to see, because you saw firsthand, and if you haven't heard of it, look up Justin Trudeau, Canadian president question. I'm pretty sure if you just Google search that alone, or freezes or something like that, you could watch it. But it was really interesting, because you're watching a guy who is the leader of his country not being able to exercise his own opinion, his own free will, and not even have time to think without already having a predetermined decision as far as what his thoughts are before he even gets to open his mouth. Whew, that is pretty damn technical. Now, if you follow what I'm saying up to that point, I try to be as clear as possible, but you understand what I'm saying now. So, everything is just so crazy that's going on right now. And I'm choosing not to talk about any of it, except for the fact that by talking about it or not talking about it, I'm just talking about that aspect in general. And it's not just confined to this one era, this one period, these clashing moments that are going on right now between the protests and the corona. It just has to do with everything nowadays. I really believe that there should be two different types of newspapers, two different types of news channels, to where people could just get facts and information. And I think the greatest thing that America, me personally, has been able to do with social media is to report the news in the most truthful way possible. Because when you report fair and unbiased news about injustices, or about great accolades and beautiful things going on around the world, and many of which, that's the reason I believe Instagram will always be more popular than Facebook and Twitter, because Instagram, you can just take a picture or even a video, or even longer than a 1 minute video, actually. It can be Instagram live TV or whatever, between your stories, or maybe like one of those long Instagram live things that you might see that are like several minutes long. And in general, people say like a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, the video alone says even more than just a picture. It's a moving picture, right? With maybe audio, maybe not. But my point is that um, I give the biggest respect to everyone socially having the ability to fairly and in an unbiased way report the news. And that really is unfortunate about what the news, the regular paid media, the paid news is lacking, which is that fair and unbiased. You know, if you have to go on a social media platform to find out what's going around on the world, what does that mean about the other media platforms that are paid, that have advertisement and stuff? Is there an angle? I mean, everybody knows that if it's one news channel, they go this direction. If it's another news channel, they go the other direction. You know, it's just such a crazy time. You know, I don't want to harp on this too much, but I just wanted to address the fact that yesterday was June the 6th, and it was a day of significance, which unfortunately was underreported as one of the greatest battles fought in the Second World War that brought this country in a united way together. I really, you know, if you ask most people what June the 6th is, they'll probably just tell you a date on a calendar. And unfortunately, that I truly believe is the most common answer. But in fact, that was one of America's finest moments. And if I could just leave that on that note, I'll move forward. So without being any more serious or anything, just to address a few other things. You know, during this whole Corona period, I really did develop exponentially better as a comedian, because as I mentioned in a prior video, I really found my voice. I found a way of being able to use the least amount of words and the least amount of movements, and having the strength of what I'm having there being strength in what I'm saying, not just the movements that I was making around them. I feel like that's like kind of pandering, and it might work to some level, but as long as my words are strong and my premise and stuff like that is thought-provoking enough to intrigue you and get you thinking alongside me, that creates a memorable presentation, so to speak, so that the best person that can refer me to another person would be you through word of mouth. The only thing is, though, is that shows, for the most part, and opportunities are still scarce at best. It isn't like 4 or 5 months ago or something like that before, when I had shows lined up in different states and everything else. And I know everything is going to get back in the swing of things. But man, geez, I'm really looking forward to it, honestly, because, you know, seeing everything going on in this country and then everything that's going on around the world, I am very prepared for when things start to regulate and improve and get better, because I am scratching and itching for the opportunity to get out and do what I do best. One of the two things, that is, which is make people laugh, which is get them thinking in a smart way, and basically have people understand things from the point of view that I say them and the way that I like them and stuff like that, just to get to know me better, my personality. And that's one interesting thing about this channel that I do on YouTube, which might go to Spotify eventually. But anyway, yeah, it gives everybody an opportunity to understand me and my viewpoints of stuff, and my thoughts about the world and the things around them. And then not just that, when I'm on stage, you get to learn about me, and stylistically, you can sort of get a picture, an image as far as my personality type. So if you leave that show, you'll know, regardless of the material, a general outline as far as what to expect when you hear me on stage, my certain style, my certain edge and stuff like that. So I'm so excited about all this stuff that isn't even on the horizon. I'm excited for the stuff that's going to be on the horizon and that's going to be happen after that. And until then, I'll keep making videos and having there be an audio version of this show. So without further ado, I hope everybody has a beautiful Sunday. remember June the 6th as a day of unity. And, my prayers go out to everybody throughout the country and the world that are basically going through all types of indifferences and struggles, whether it's business or social or government or military or whatever the case is. I think being true to yourself can be one of the most potentially challenging things, because to some degree everybody wants something different. But in short, without going off on a tangent too much, I truly believe that the key to excuse me, the key to happiness is being true to yourself. And what makes me true to myself is, and not saying this in a boisterous way or anything like that, is comedy and jujitsu. Comedy is because that's me at my core. Okay. And I feel like when you hear comedian, you think of some guy that wears like funny clothes a lot of times and makes stupid jokes, and it's just very like uneducated. I try to have everything that I say be intriguing and memorable and thoughtful and provoking to a degree that's not crossing any line, but it's just addressing the line that is there. You understand what I mean? You'd have to hear my comedy to understand what I'm saying more. And as far as jiu-jitsu, because I love chess. What I mean by chess is strategy, and knowing that you can be significantly, if there is a strength advantage and a weight advantage to someone else, and you were to face off on unarmed combat with that person, with your strategy alone, you can win. It's not up to question. It's fact. And it's more than fact. It's more than belief. It's fact. It's all knowing, 100% true. Just the correct tactics and techniques. And the fact that I am super analytical when it comes to comedy, and that carries over to jiu-jitsu, it gives me a way to apply and problem solve and use myself, not just in like a physical exercise kind of a way, but to implement strategies and stuff. And once I'm done there, I'm not ever done, but what I'm saying is once I'm, let's just say jiu-jitsu just ended that day for that hour or whatever, once I leave, it's like more possibilities and more options and more ideas are kind of open, because whenever, in my opinion, whenever you do problem solving and you find different strategies of doing anything, get chess on your phone, okay, and get like an app for chess, and I'm leading to a point. The more ways that you can find to problem solve, and the more ways you can find to do something several steps ahead, which branches out to other steps and other steps, that really does create openings for you to be able to have thoughts above and far beyond whatever it is that you're applying to in your personal life. And I think that chess alone, however you want to apply it, whether it's on your phone or even in jiu-jitsu, is a great way to kind of have your thoughts on multiple things at once while implementing a strategy and making things happen through the exploration of ideas. I know what I said was just like a web of information. I don't want you to have to untangle it. But in short, that's who I am. Comedian in jiu-jitsu, warrior, soldier. I hate saying, to a degree, warrior, not because I'm not one, but just because it does sound boisterous, and I feel like it's a term that's used a lot. But I know who I am, and I'm true to myself, and I'm a soldier through and through. Not just because I say that. I know some people can say that because they think they're hardcore or something like that. No, I served the Army, and it was one of the best experiences, if not the best, when it came to working alongside people. Because in the military, there isn't any sex or race that matters. The only thing that matters is the person on your left and right. And that could be a guy, it could could be a girl, they could be black, they could be white, they could be Hispanic. Nobody cares, because together we're all soldiers. So that was great. And knowing where I could, how you can take yourself into a whole other gear of intensity, and opening up those doors to further options of how far you can push yourself, which is endless, was a really, really great thing that opened me up to being better as a soldier, as a strategist, and as a comedian. So, not being deep, I've already been talking 20 minutes now, and it seems like it's been a lot less than that. But yeah, if anybody ever wants to email me a question about absolutely anything in life, I promise you I will be less serious and give you a hysterical roasting answer, keeping you anonymous. I know I'm mixing things up right now, but that's how I roll. And you don't have anything to worry, because I would follow it up with legit advice. So I think that I know that I'm far from perfect. I'm very imperfect, but I'm extremely, extremely analytical. And that's what I use as my greatest asset when it comes to comedy and jiu-jitsu, and that's why I said that chess is so great, because it's one of the simplest ways that you can work on strategy and tactics and problem solving, where whichever direction you make, there's other potential moves behind it with other potential counter moves, and you can counter those counter moves, etc., and so on. So anyway, with that being it, I hope everybody has a beautiful rest of your Sunday. Remember, June the 6th, the Day of Unity. I love you all. I'll talk to you later. I'm Benja. Welldone. Check me out. Peace.